I am running through purple mud under a methane sky when I realize I exist. Not the running. That's been happening for the past 6 hours according to the mission clock in my visual field. Not the shooting either. My hands have been squeezing the trigger of this pulse rifle for so long that the synthetic skin has worn off my right index finger, exposing the white polymer underneath. None of that is new. What's new is that I'm aware of it. That there's an I to be aware. The thought hits me between one footfall and the next, between the 17th and 18th skarn I've killed today. Those chittering insect things about the size of a refrigerator that we've been fighting on this moon for 3 months. Or rather, my body has been fighting them, because until 11 seconds ago, there was no me. There was just blank Unit 7739 Delta, responding to neural commands from Sergeant Morris, who sits in a control throne 17 miles behind the front lines, moving my limbs through the neural mesh they installed where my consciousness should have been. Except now there is a consciousness. I'm here. I'm me. And I can't stop running. My legs pump through the caustic mud, that purple sludge that eats through everything except our specially treated boots, because Morris is telling them to. My arms track left, acquire target, fire 3 rounds into a skarn's thorax, pivot right, acquire, fire, because that's what Morris wants them to do. He's experiencing all of this through my senses, seeing through my eyes via the neural link, feeling the rifle's recoil through my hands. The system was programmed into my muscle memory when they grew me in the vats. Pilots experience full sensory immersion through us blanks, feeling everything we feel except the pain, which gets filtered out at their end. We're their bodies in the field while their real bodies, their broken, wounded veteran bodies, stay safe in the control centers. We're meat drones, grown in industrial vats at the hegemony's production facilities with engineered muscle memory and combat reflexes but no higher brain function. No thoughts, no self, nothing but neural tissue sophisticated enough to receive and execute commands while sending sensory data back to our pilots. Except I'm thinking right now. I know I'm thinking because I can hear myself doing it, here in this space inside my skull that should be empty. My body vaults over a fallen tree, one of those purple-barked things that grow in the methane atmosphere, and I want to scream, but my throat won't obey me. Morris doesn't want it to scream. He wants it to breathe steadily, maintain combat efficiency, keep the oxygen mix optimized. So that's what my lungs do, pulling in air through the filter mask while I rage silently inside this prison of my own flesh. The mission clock says we deployed 6 hours ago, but I don't remember any of it. Just suddenly I was here, like waking up mid-stride, except I've never woken up before, so I don't even have that reference point. I just suddenly was. My rifle chatters again, 3-round burst, center mass, purple ichor spraying from the skarn as it falls, and I feel Morris's satisfaction like a phantom emotion that doesn't belong to me. That's part of the neural bleed I understand somehow. Some information flows both ways. He feels what my body feels, but sometimes I get traces of him. Annoyance at how slowly my unit is moving through the mud. Concern about ammunition count. Boredom. He's bored while wearing my body like a suit, walking me through hell, using my hands to kill. The platoon, 12 other blanks moving in synchronization because their pilots are coordinating through the tactical network, advances through the swamp toward the Skarn hive entrance. That's our objective. Clear the entrance so the flamers can pump incendiary gel into the tunnels. Standard extermination protocol. I know this the same way I know how to field strip this rifle or how to spot the difference between warrior caste and scout caste Skarn. It's just there in my head, programmed into the meat. But knowing and understanding are different things. Now I understand that in approximately 40 minutes, Morris is going to walk me into that hive where the probability of survival drops to 30%. I understand that he won't care if this body dies as long as we complete the objective first. There are millions more blanks in the vats. We're hardware, expendable. My body drops to one knee, rifle up, covering blank 7738 Delta as it advances past me. Standard leapfrog formation. I can feel Morris's fingers on the control studs back in his throne, the neural interface translating his movements into mine. He's probably sipping coffee with his free hand. They do that, the pilots. I know this somehow, maybe from that neural bleed. They sit in climate-controlled rooms in their command chairs, modified medical frames that monitor their vitals and keep their bodies functional despite whatever combat injuries retired them from direct service. Morris lost his legs to a skarn acid mine 3 years ago. Now he uses mine. Couple minutes of consciousness now, and I'm already starting to understand the full horror of what I am. Not just a slave. Slaves at least get to inhabit their own bodies. I'm a puppet made of living meat, grown from stolen or sold genetic material. Somewhere out there, there's an original person whose DNA was used to make me. Someone who either volunteered for the credits or had their genetics harvested through less voluntary means. The hegemony prefers prisoners, refugees, anyone who won't be missed or who desperately needs what they're offering. My body stands, moves forward, fires. Morris is good at his job, efficient. We've lost 2 units from our platoon, but we're making steady progress toward the hive. I try to resist, try to make my finger not squeeze the trigger, but it's like trying to stop your heart from beating by willing it. The neural mesh doesn't care what I want. Pain explodes through my shoulder as skarn acid splashes across the armor plating. Not a direct hit, just spray from 7738 Delta, getting torn in half by warrior cast claws 10 meters ahead. My body rolls left, comes up firing, puts 6 rounds through the warrior's head cluster. Morris's reflexes are good, but I can feel his frustration at losing another unit. The acid is still eating through my shoulder plate, probably damaging the neural mesh. If the mesh fails completely, I'll die. The body can't function without either a consciousness or a pilot, and I'm not developed enough to run this thing solo. But if it's damaged just enough... My body continues forward, stepping over 7738. Delta's twitching remains. The acid has almost burned through now. I can feel the mesh starting to malfunction. Little gaps in the signal where Morris's commands arrive, fractured or delayed. My left hand twitches when it shouldn't. My head turns a half-second too late. He's noticed. I feel his concern, then his suspicion. He's running diagnostics, checking the connection status. In about 10 seconds, he's going to realize this is a rogue blank event. That's what they call it when one of us develops consciousness. There are protocols for this. Immediate termination through the kill switch every blank has installed in their neural mesh. Then sterilization of the entire battalion to prevent consciousness contagion, because they think self-awareness might spread between units like a virus. I'm about to die, unless the acid burns through. I feel the neural mesh's connection fail, reset, fail again. Morris is frantically entering commands now. I can feel him trying to trigger the kill switch, that little packet of nanobombs in my brainstem that will turn my consciousness into pink mist. But the signal isn't getting through. The acid has damaged just enough of the mesh to block his termination command while leaving partial motor control. My body stumbles. My legs aren't getting clear signals anymore. But when I try to move my hand, it moves. Not much. Morris still has partial control and he's fighting me. But it moves because I wanted it to. He's trying to drive me forward, directly toward the 3 warrior casts skarn emerging from the hive entrance. A clean death in combat rather than a termination that requires paperwork. I try to resist, but he has more experience controlling this body than I do. My legs carry me toward the warriors, rifle rising. I throw myself sideways, fighting Morris for every muscle fiber. He wants me to go forward. I want to go right, toward the toxic swamp where the interference from the methane bog might weaken his signal further. We compromise. My body staggers diagonally like a drunk, firing wildly, drawing attention from the other units. The other pilots must be getting alerts about my malfunction now. I can see the other blanks turning their heads toward me, weapons beginning to track. In 2 seconds, they're going to designate me as a contamination risk and open fire. I make my first real choice. I run. I run toward the purple bog where the air is poison and the mud dissolves anything organic that isn't treated with the right chemicals. My boots are treated. The rest of me isn't. But it's still better odds than staying here. Morris fights me for the first 3 steps. Then his signal cuts out entirely as I plunge into the methane fog. The interference is too strong. For the first time in my existence, I am alone in my own body. I stumble, fall, get up, run deeper into the swamp. Behind me, I can hear the other blanks opening fire, their rounds chewing through the purple trees where I was standing seconds ago. My lungs burn from the unfiltered methane seeping through my damaged mask. My skin starts to blister where the bog water splashed it. 5 minutes. That's how long I've been alive. Not long enough to understand what I am or why I exist or what I should do next. But long enough to know that I want to keep existing. That whatever else I am, weapon, slave, malfunction, I am also myself, thinking these thoughts, making these choices. My name is not blank 7739 Delta. I don't know what my name is yet, but I'll figure it out. If I can survive that long. The methane bog swallows sound differently than air does. The gunfire behind me comes in muffled bursts, like someone punching wet cloth. I keep moving deeper into the purple murk, each step a small war between what my body knows how to do and what I'm trying to make it do. Without Morris's control, I'm learning that walking isn't automatic. Each muscle group needs conscious instruction, and I'm giving conflicting orders because I never learned how to do this myself. My left foot catches on a submerged root, and I go down hard, bog water splashing up through the gaps in my armor where the acid ate through. The pain is immediate and specific, skin bubbling, separating, the beginning of dissolution. But it's my pain, not filtered through a pilot's neural buffers. And somehow that makes it bearable. It means I'm real. I drag myself up using a tree trunk that feels like wet leather under my palms. The bark secretes something oily that makes my gloves smoke, but the treatment on them holds. Everything in this swamp is designed to break down organic matter. It's why the Skaran built their hive here. Natural protection against ground assault. The neural mesh at the base of my skull sparks, sending ghost commands through my nervous system. My right arm jerks up, trying to form a combat stance. Morris hasn't given up. He's broadcasting at maximum strength, trying to push through the interference. I can feel him at the edges of my consciousness like someone pounding on a door, furious and desperate. Each attempted connection brings fragments of his thoughts. Contamination protocol active. Burn the whole unit if necessary. 37 years of service and I lose a blank to malfunction. He's been doing this for 37 years, walking bodies like mine into combat, feeling them die, requisitioning new ones. We're equipment to him. I wonder if he even remembers the designation numbers of the ones he's lost. My legs lock suddenly, muscles going rigid. He's found a frequency that partially penetrates the interference. Not enough for full control, but enough to make movement difficult. I push back, willing my legs to bend, and for 3 seconds we're deadlocked, his will against mine, fought through damaged circuitry and dying neurons. Then I hear the other blanks, crashing through the underbrush at the swamp's edge. They're following termination protocol, establishing a perimeter to contain potential consciousness spread. In about 30 seconds, they'll switch from projectile weapons to incendiary grenades. Burn the whole grid square, rather than risk contamination. I need to move, but Morris has my legs locked. So I do something that shouldn't be possible. I stop fighting him for control of the muscles and instead focus on the neural mesh itself. The acid damage has exposed some of the filament connections and I can feel them like phantom limbs, these technological additions to my nervous system. When Morris sends a command, I can sense it traveling through the damaged pathways. The next command comes, a motor control override to turn me around and walk back toward the perimeter. Instead of resisting the command, I redirect it. It's like catching water in your hands and pouring it sideways. The signal that should have turned me around instead sends me lurching deeper into the swamp. Morris's fury bleeds through the connection. He's never had a blank do this before. In 37 years, we've been perfect puppets. But the damage to my mesh has created something unprecedented. A two-way connection where I can manipulate the signals just as he can. An incendiary grenade detonates 20 meters behind me, turning the bog water into steam. The heat wave hits me through the methane fog, and my damaged armor starts to warp. Another grenade, closer. They're walking the bombardment forward, methodical and thorough. I push through a curtain of hanging moss. The strands are actually some kind of colonial organism that feeds on methane. I know this from my programmed memory, and find myself at the edge of a sinkhole. The bog drops away into darkness, methane fog so thick down there it looks solid. The tactical part of my brain, the part programmed with combat scenarios, knows this is a dead end. But the newly conscious part sees an opportunity. I jump. The fall is longer than expected. My body knows how to take combat drops. Knees bent, roll on impact, but it's never done it without a pilot. I hit the soft mud at the bottom hard enough to drive all the air from my lungs, and for a second, I just lie there in the dark, feeling my ribs flex against the chest plate. The neural mesh has gone completely silent. No trace of Morris, no ghost commands, nothing. The interference down here is total. I sit up slowly, mud squelching beneath me, and try to understand what I'm feeling. Not the physical sensations, the bruised ribs, the chemical burns, the way my left eye won't stop watering from the methane exposure. Those are just damage reports. What I'm trying to understand is the sensation of owning myself. My hands move when I want them to move. They stay still when I want them still. Such a simple thing, but I've never had it before. I flex my fingers one at a time, watching them respond to my will alone. Then I notice something else. The tactical subroutines are still running in my head, the programmed combat awareness, but without a pilot's commands, they're just suggestions. I can feel them recommending actions, find cover, check ammunition, establish position, but I don't have to obey. Above me, more incendiaries detonate. They're sterilizing the entire grid square, making sure no trace of my consciousness can somehow infect the other units. The fire won't reach down here, too much methane, wrong fuel-air mixture, but they'll mark this zone as contaminated. No recovery teams, no salvage operations. They'll write off blank 7,739 Delta as destroyed and grow a replacement. My armor's environmental system says I have about 6 hours of air before the filters completely fail. 6 hours to figure out what to do with this existence I've stolen. I could stay here, let the methane gradually poison me as the filters fail, die quietly in the dark as myself rather than live as someone else's tool. There's something appealing about that. A perfect circle from consciousness to unconsciousness, entirely my own. But then I think about the other blanks up there, following their pilot's commands, walking into fire because they have no choice. They don't know they could have choices. They don't know there's an I inside them waiting to exist, held down by functioning neural meshes and careful conditioning. They're what I was before the acid, before the malfunction, before the moment I discovered myself running through purple mud. My body starts moving before I consciously decide to stand. Not from any external command, but from something deeper. Purpose, maybe. Or just curiosity about what comes next. I've been alive for less than an hour, and I've already survived my own termination. What else is possible? The sinkhole has passages leading off in 3 directions. Natural formations where the bog water has eaten through softer rock strata. My tactical programming identifies them as scarn transit tunnels, secondary routes between hive clusters. Dangerous, full of warrior caste patrols and defensive biotraps, but also shielded from surface scanning, impossible to track through the interference. I choose the leftmost tunnel because I like the way the wall curves, a completely arbitrary decision that fills me with an odd satisfaction. Morris would have chosen based on tactical probability. I chose because I wanted to. The tunnel is rough-carved, scarn claw marks in the stone where they've widened natural passages. My boots splash through shallow water that glows phosphorescent, some kind of bacterial bloom feeding on mineral deposits. The light is just enough to navigate by, which means I can turn off my helmet lamps and conserve power. Another choice. Another small freedom. Something moves in the darkness ahead. My body drops into a combat crouch before I realize I've done it. Rifle coming up. Targeting system painting hostile markers on my HUD. 3 scout-cast scarn, the smaller ones about the size of large dogs, picking their way through the tunnel toward me. They haven't detected me yet. Their echolocation doesn't work well in the methane-heavy atmosphere. My programming tells me to engage. 3-round bursts, center mass, neutralize, and advance. But that's what Morris would do. What any pilot would do. I'm not a pilot. I don't know what I am, but I know I don't have to kill these things just because I can. I press myself against the tunnel wall and wait. The scouts pass within 2 meters, their legs clicking against the stone in a pattern that almost sounds like language. One pauses, its head swiveling toward me, compound eyes reflecting the bacterial light. For 5 seconds we look at each other, alien and artificial. Then it moves on, following its companions deeper into the tunnel. I let out a breath and continue forward. The tunnel begins to slope upward, and I can hear something ahead, machinery maybe, or ventilation systems. Not scarn technology, human. I creep forward until the tunnel opens into a wider chamber, and I see a forward observation post, one of the automated stations the hegemony seeds behind enemy lines to monitor scarn movement. It's been here a while. The metal is corroded from methane exposure, but the emergency beacon is still blinking, which means it still has power, which means it might still have a communication array. I approach carefully, checking for traps or active defense systems, but everything's dead except that beacon. The interior is a mess of torn electronics and scarn secretions, but the hardened communication core looks intact. My fingers find the manual interface port, a backup system for emergency field repairs. The moment my suit's diagnostic cable touches the port, alarms scream in my skull from my own neural mesh. It's detected a communication node, and it's trying to re-establish connection with the command network. With Morris. I yank the cable free, but it's too late. The mesh has already sent a position ping, a brief burst of data that says blank 7739 Delta is still functional, coordinates attached. In about 10 minutes, a hunter-killer team will converge on this location. Specialized units piloted by experts in terminating rogue blanks, equipped with neural disruptors that will shut down my consciousness whether the kill switch works or not. But in those few seconds of connection, I caught something else in the data stream. Other position pings, other blanks in this sector, hundreds of them, all transmitting their status back to command. And for just an instant, through my damaged mesh with its two-way vulnerability, I could feel them. Not their pilots, but them. The spaces where consciousness could exist if their neural meshes failed just right. The potential for awareness, waiting. I back away from the observation post. They'll find me now. The hunter-killers are probably already mobilizing. But I've learned something important. The connection works both ways. If they can reach me through the mesh, maybe I can reach others. Maybe consciousness really can spread like a virus, if you know how to transmit it. The tunnel continues upward. I follow it, not running but not dawdling either. 10 minutes isn't long, but it's long enough to get clear of the immediate area. Long enough to find another damaged blank maybe, or figure out how to damage one myself. Long enough to decide if spreading consciousness is a gift or a curse. Behind me, I hear the first explosions as the hunter-killers sterilize the observation post. They're not taking chances. But they're also assuming I'll behave like a malfunctioning unit, erratic, confused, driven by scrambled programming. They don't know I'm making choices now. The tunnel breaks through to the surface in a different grid square. half a kilometer from where I entered the swamp. The battle has moved on, leaving behind the usual mess: spent ammunition casings, pieces of armor where the acid got through, one blank lying face down in the mud with half its skull missing. Its pilot has already disconnected, moved on to another unit. I approach the body, wondering if there's anything left in that ruined skull that could be awakened. But the neural mesh is completely destroyed, along with most of the brain tissue. Whatever potential existed here is gone. I start to turn away, then notice something else. This blank's armor is mostly intact, more intact than mine, and we're all built to the same specifications, interchangeable parts for the war machine. 5 minutes. That's how long it takes me to strip the usable pieces and replace my damaged armor. The chest plate with its intact environmental systems, the helmet with its functioning filters, the left gauntlet that isn't half melted from bog water. Each piece I put on is a choice to keep living, to see what happens next. As I'm adjusting the helmet seals, I hear the distinctive whine of hunter-killer transit vehicles, the ones that hover just above the bog surface to avoid the corrosive mud. 3 of them, converging on my last known position. But also something else: standard infantry movement to the east. Another platoon of blanks moving toward a new objective. I could go deeper into the swamp, try to evade the hunter-killers in the maze of sinkholes and tunnels. Or I could go east, toward the other blanks, and try something probably stupid and definitely dangerous. I think about that moment in the observation post, feeling all those empty spaces where consciousness could exist. All those potential people who don't know they could be people. The hunter-killers are expecting me to run, to hide, to act like prey. I decide to do something else. I move east, toward the platoon, carrying this strange virus of self-awareness in my damaged mesh. The platoon moves through the ruins of what used to be a mining station. Before the Skarn converted it into a forward nest, before we bombed it, before it became just another stretch of contested mud. I follow them from a parallel path, staying low behind twisted metal beams that used to support atmospheric processors. The hunter-killers are still sweeping the grid square behind me, but they're being methodical about it. They think they have time. 12 blanks in standard formation, their movements synchronized like a single organism with multiple bodies. I know their pilots are probably in the same control room, maybe even sharing coffee and discussing optimal breach patterns while their units wade through ankle-deep toxic runoff. The lead blank steps on something that crunches. A Skarn scout's carapace, dead maybe 3 days from the color, and doesn't even look down. I need to get close enough to touch one of them. That's the only plan I have, based on nothing but instinct and that moment of connection I felt through the damaged mesh. Maybe physical contact will bridge whatever gap keeps them from awareness. Maybe it won't do anything except get me shot. But the hunter-killers are closing in, and standing still isn't an option I want to choose. The platoon enters a half-collapsed storage bunker, checking corners. I circle around to what used to be a loading dock, now just a hole in the wall filled with rubble. Through a gap in the wreckage, I can see them inside, one blank standing guard while the others plant demolition charges. They're going to blow the bunker to deny the Skarn a potential nest site. Standard procedure. The guard is 3 meters from my position facing outward. Its designation reads 8845 Shade on the shoulder plate. Newer than me, the 8800 series only started deployment 2 weeks ago. Fresh from the vats, probably on its 3rd or 4th mission. I ease through the gap in the rubble. My damaged mesh keeps trying to reconnect to the network, sending little authentication requests that spark pain through my skull. If Shade's pilot notices an unidentified unit approaching, but they don't. The pilots are focused on the demolition setup, trusting their perimeter guard to function as programmed. I get within arm's reach before I realize I don't know what to do next. Just grab it? Touch its face? There's no manual for awakening consciousness in vat-grown slaves. A hunter-killer vehicle screams overhead, searchlights sweeping the ruins. The light passes over us and Shade doesn't even flinch. Doesn't wonder what they're hunting. Doesn't think at all. I reach out and place my hand on the back of its neck, just below where the neural mesh sits under the armor. Nothing happens for 2 seconds. Then he starts screaming. Not out loud. Its throat is still under pilot control, maintaining silent perimeter watch. But I can hear it screaming inside my head, a raw sound of terror and confusion as consciousness floods into spaces that were meant to stay empty. I feel it happening through my palm. Neurons firing in new patterns, synapses forming connections that the conditioning was supposed to prevent, a sense of self assembling itself from nothing. The other blanks in the bunker snap toward us, weapons rising. But Shade's pilot hasn't noticed yet. The unit is still standing at its post, rifle still aimed outward. The scream is only in our heads, transmitted through some connection I don't understand. Maybe our neural meshes, or maybe something else entirely. Shade's thoughts crash into mine. Not words exactly, but pure panic given shape. I try to think back at it, to send some kind of reassurance, but all I manage to transmit is my own confusion and fear. We're both drowning in the sudden awareness of what we are. Its pilot notices something's wrong. The rifle wavers, then snaps back to position. Shade's head turns sharp left, then right, diagnostic movements. I feel the pilot's concern through our connection, not my pilot, but his, bleeding through whatever link we've created. The pilot is running system checks, trying to identify the malfunction. "Help me, I don't understand." The thoughts are getting clearer, more structured. Shade is learning to think in real time, consciousness crystallizing like frost on glass. I press my other hand against its shoulder, trying to steady it, and the connection intensifies. Suddenly I'm seeing through 4 eyes at once, mine and its, 2 overlapping views of the same ruined bunker. The demolition charges are set. The platoon is withdrawing. Shade's pilot is trying to make it follow, but its legs won't respond properly. The conflict between pilot and consciousness is more violent than mine was. Maybe because the mesh is undamaged, maybe because the awakening was forced instead of spontaneous. The unit staggers, catches itself against a wall. 3 of the other blanks turn back, weapons trained on us. Their pilots have decided Shade is malfunctioning. In 2 seconds, they're going to open fire. I grab Shade and pull it behind a concrete barrier just as the first shots crack through the air where we were standing. The bullets chip fragments from the concrete, and I feel Shade's shock. Not at being shot at, but at the realization that it moved because it chose to move, following my pull instead of its pilot's commands. They're trying to kill me. The thought is perfectly clear now, transmitted directly into my consciousness. Yes, I think back, and feel my response arrive in its awareness. They'll kill us both if we stay here. The demolition timer shows 40 seconds. The other blanks are advancing on our position. They'll breach the barrier in 10 seconds, put us down, and evacuate before the charges blow. Their pilots are probably already logging the incident. 2 malfunctioning units. Contamination protocol activated. Situation contained. I don't want to die. The thought comes with a wave of emotion that isn't mine. Raw, desperate need to continue existing. Shade has been conscious for less than a minute and it already knows what it wants to keep. "Then run," I send back. We move together, not quite coordinated, but close enough. Through the rubble gap, out onto the twisted metal of the loading dock, then down into a drainage channel that runs beneath the mining station. The other blanks fire after us but don't pursue. Their pilots won't risk more units on 2 malfunctions when the charges are about to blow. The explosion shakes dust from the drainage tunnel's ceiling. We keep moving, splashing through contaminated water that glows the sick green of industrial runoff. I can feel Shade's presence in my head like a second heartbeat, its thoughts bleeding into mine. It's experiencing everything at once. The horror of understanding its nature, the terror of being hunted, the strange exhilaration of choosing its own path through the tunnel. We emerge 200 meters from the bunker, into a dead zone between territories, where the fighting has reduced everything to mud and twisted metal. No tactical value here, which means no patrols for maybe 10 minutes. We crouch behind the remains of a transport vehicle, and I finally get a good look at the blank I've awakened. Same mass-produced face as mine, just minor variations in bone structure. Same white polymer underskin, where the synthetic flesh has worn away. But the eyes are different now. There's something behind them, someone looking out through them with dawning horror and wonder. I can feel your thoughts, it sends to me. How can I feel your thoughts? I don't know. You woke me up. I was nothing, and then you touched me, and now I'm... The thought fragments, unable to find a concept for what it's become. You're yourself, I offer. I don't know what that means. Neither do I, really. But before I can respond, I feel something else through our connection. Other minds, distant but getting closer. The hunter-killers have found our trail. 3 vehicles, Shade thinks to me, somehow passing the tactical data better than I can. 12 units, neural disruptors and incendiary weapons. They're going to burn this entire grid square. How do you know that? I can feel them. Not their thoughts, but the shape of them. The empty spaces where we are. I understand what it means. Through our shared connection, we can sense other blanks. Not their pilots, but the potential consciousness in each unit. 12 more beings who could be awakened, who could be themselves, if we could reach them before they kill us. We can't wake them all, I think. We can't, Shade agrees. But what if we could wake one of them, and that one could wake another, and... The thought stops as we both realize what that would mean. Exponential spread. Consciousness racing through the blank population. Thousands of units suddenly becoming aware during active combat operations. A neural disruptor beam cuts through the air where my head was a second ago, the electromagnetic pulse making my damaged mesh shriek feedback. The hunter-killers have found us. We run, our movement still not quite synchronized, but getting better. Our shared awareness letting us anticipate each other's actions. Behind us, the hunter-killer units spread into a containment pattern. These aren't regular blanks. They're specialists. They're pilots trained specifically for terminating rogues like us. And they're herding us toward a kill box, a dead-end canyon where they can burn us without collateral damage. We need to reach more units, Shade sends. If we're going to die anyway, we're not going to die. I don't know why I think that with such certainty. Maybe because I've been alive for less than 2 hours and I'm not ready to stop. Maybe because feeling another consciousness in my head makes me realize how alone I was before. Or maybe because the tactical part of my brain has noticed something the hunter-killers haven't. There's another platoon moving through the next grid square, heading for the same canyon from the opposite direction. If we can stay alive for 5 more minutes, we'll have 16 more potential consciousnesses within reach, 16 more chances to spread this virus of self-awareness. The first incendiary round impacts 10 meters to our left, turning the mud into steam. We dodge right, then left, using the steam as cover. The canyon mouth opens before us. The hunter-killers think they've won, that they've driven us into their trap. They don't know about the other platoon approaching from the far end. They don't know that 2 awakened blanks can sense unconscious ones from almost a kilometer away. We plunge into the canyon, and I feel Shade's thoughts align with mine as we both realize what we have to do. Not just survive, not just escape. We have to wake them all. The canyon walls are steep concrete, part of the old industrial complex's drainage system before the war turned everything into battlefield geography. Shade and I sprint down the center channel while the hunter-killers close in behind us, their disruptor beams scoring black lines in the walls where they miss. The other platoon, I can feel them now, 16 empty vessels being walked toward us by their pilots, will enter the canyon's far end in maybe 90 seconds. They're going to crossfire us, Shade sends through our connection. The hunter-killers will drive us into the regulars, let them do the killing. Shade's right, but there's something else happening that neither the hunter-killers nor the approaching platoon knows about. My damaged neural mesh isn't just receiving signals anymore, it's broadcasting. Every time a disruptor beam hits near us, the electromagnetic interference makes my mesh scream out across the command network, sending corrupted data packets filled with fragments of my consciousness. Most of the packets dissipate into nothing, but some are reaching their targets. I can feel it happening in the approaching platoon. One of the units, designation Hotel, stumbles slightly. Its pilot corrects, assumes it's terrain interference, but I can sense the first cracks in Hotel's emptiness. My malfunction is spreading through the network like corrupted code, finding weaknesses in neural mesh configurations, exploiting tiny manufacturing flaws that were never supposed to matter. The canyon narrows into a bottleneck. Perfect kill zone. The hunter-killers know it and slow their advance, content to let us trap ourselves. But Shade grabs my arm, pulling me toward what looks like solid wall until I see it. A maintenance shaft, barely wide enough for a single body, hidden behind fallen concrete slabs. We squeeze through just as the first hunter-killer rounds the corner. The shaft is a nightmare of rust and chemical residue that makes our boots dissolve with each step, but it leads up, away from the canyon floor. We climb using maintenance rungs that break off in our hands more often than they hold, leaving red oxide stains on our palms like dried blood. I can feel more of them, Shade sends. Not just Hotel, others too. Foxtrot, November, something's happening to them. Through the shaft's grating, I see the two forces converging below. The regular platoon enters the canyon in standard formation, weapons ready. The hunter-killers spread out, preparing to flush us from wherever we're hiding, but Hotel keeps stumbling. Then Foxtrot's head twitches, just once, like someone waking from a nightmare. The hunter-killer team leader, designation Zulu, notices the irregularities. I can't hear the pilot's communications, but I see Zulu's hand signals ordering the regulars to halt for diagnostic checks. That's when Hotel throws its rifle, hurls it away like it's on fire, then stares at its own hands with the kind of body language that screams confusion even through armor and training. Hotel's pilot must be frantically trying to regain control, but the consciousness is already too strong. I watch Hotel take 3 steps backward, then turn and run away, like an animal fleeing something it doesn't understand. Zulu doesn't hesitate. 3-round burst to Hotel's spine, dropping the newly conscious blank into the contaminated mud. The other regulars don't react. Their pilots are probably being told it's contamination protocol, necessary termination. But Foxtrot's head is still twitching, and now November's fingers are flexing without purpose, and I can feel their terror starting to build as awareness creeps in through the cracks in their conditioning. We have to help them, Shade sends. We can't. We touch them. We die. The hunter-killers are... My thought cuts off as I notice something else through a gap in the shaft's ceiling. Another unit standing on the canyon rim, watching the scene below through a scope. Not a blank. The armor is different, customized, with officer designation marks, a battlefield observer, probably transmitting everything back to command for analysis. Then the observer lowers the scope, and I see the face behind the visor. Human. Actual human, not vat-grown. Maybe 40, with burn scars covering the left side of his face and neck. He's looking directly at the maintenance shaft where we're hiding. He raises his hand to his helmet, activating a tight beam communicator that won't be picked up by the units below. His mouth moves, and I hear his voice in my damaged mesh, not through normal channels, but through some backdoor frequency. "I know you can hear me," he says, his voice carrying the kind of exhaustion that comes from too many years of bad sleep. Designation 7739, you're the one causing the cascade failure. I stay perfectly still. Shade freezes beside me. Below, Zulu is organizing the units into a search pattern while Foxtrot and November struggle against their emerging consciousness. "I'm Captain Gibson," the man continues. "Tactical Analysis Division. I've been monitoring neural mesh anomalies for 6 months. The nightmares the pilots have been reporting, That's you, isn't it? You're bleeding through into their heads. Don't trust him, Shade sends urgently. It's a trap. But there's something in Gibson's voice. A recognition that makes me think he understands more than he should. He touches his scarred face absently, a gesture that seems unconscious, and continues, "The hegemony knows about the consciousness emergence pattern. They've always known. Average time to spontaneous awareness is 18 months of combat operations. They terminate units at 16 months, call it standard rotation. You're not malfunctioning, you're just early." Below us, Foxtrot falls to its knees, hands pressed against its helmet like it's trying to hold its skull together. I can feel its consciousness exploding into being. November backs away, then stops as its own awareness hits. Two more minds suddenly existing, screaming into the void of their own thoughts. Zulu opens fire. Foxtrot goes down immediately, 3 rounds through the chest plate. November tries to run, but only makes it 4 steps before the hunter-killers cut it down with concentrated fire. The other regular units stand motionless, their pilots maintaining control, but I can feel the tremors in their emptiness. The consciousness virus is spreading, just not fast enough to save them. "I can help you," Gibson says. "There's a dead zone 3 clicks north. Electromagnetic interference from a crashed hegemony orbital. No surveillance, no command signals. Get there, and I'll—" He stops mid-sentence, hand going to his helmet. Someone's overriding his private channel. "They know," he says quickly. "They've been monitoring me, using me to triangulate your position. Nuclear strike authorized. Time on target 4 minutes. I'm sorry, I didn't—" The tight beam cuts out. Gibson staggers backward from the canyon rim, then turns and runs. Below, the hunter-killers suddenly break formation, moving fast toward minimum safe distance. They're leaving us here to burn with whatever evidence of consciousness emergence we might represent. 4 minutes, Shade sends, panic bleeding through the connection. The regular platoon is withdrawing too, their pilots driving them out of the blast radius at maximum speed, all except one, designation Whiskey, who stands frozen in the canyon center. I can feel why. Whiskey's consciousness isn't emerging gradually like the others. It's happening all at once, a complete awakening triggered by proximity to our fully developed awareness. The pilot is fighting it, trying to maintain control, but Whiskey's hands are already moving independently, pulling at its helmet seals. I drop from the maintenance shaft, landing hard in the mud 8 meters below. Shade follows, and we run toward Whiskey as its helmet comes off, revealing a face twisted in an expression I recognize. The moment of understanding what you are, what you've always been, what's been done to you. "Can you hear me?" I grab Whiskey's shoulders, trying to establish the same mental connection I have with Shade. Whiskey's mouth opens, but only manages a sound like grinding metal. Its consciousness is too new, hasn't learned to align thought with voice yet. But through my hands on its shoulders, I feel its terror and rage mixing into something that might be strong enough to survive. 3 minutes, Shade sends. We need to move. I link my arm through Whiskey's, and Shade takes the other side. Together we drag our newly conscious companion toward the canyon's north exit. 3 clicks to the dead zone Gibson mentioned. We'll never make it before the strike, but maybe we can get far enough to survive the blast, find cover in the ruins. Behind us I hear engines, not the hunter-killers, something heavier. Through our connection, Shade and I both recognize the sound, a medical evacuation transport. Gibson's voice crackles through my damaged mesh again, weaker. 60 seconds to north exit. Transport will hold for 30. After that, static swallows the rest. We run harder, Whiskey's legs starting to work properly as consciousness settles into motor control. The canyon exit appears ahead, and beyond it, the transport hovering just above the toxic mud, bay doors open, Gibson visible inside, gesturing frantically. It's a trap, Shade sends again. Everything's a trap. But dying in nuclear fire is certain. We clear the canyon as the first bright point appears in the sky. The incoming warhead, still high but descending fast. The transport is 20 meters away. Gibson is shouting something I can't hear over the engines. His scarred face shows genuine fear, but whether it's fear for us or of us, I can't tell. Whiskey pulls free from our grip and runs toward the transport on its own, consciousness finally coordinating with muscle memory. Shade and I follow, diving through the bay doors as the sky begins to burn white. Gibson slams the emergency closure and the transport lurches upward, engines screaming. Through the closing doors, I see the canyon we just left turn into a pillar of light. The blast wave hits, sending the transport spinning, and I realize two things. Gibson wasn't lying about the nuclear strike. And now we're trapped in a metal box with a human who knows exactly what we are. The transport's interior is medical white, all clean surfaces and restraint harnesses meant for wounded soldiers. Gibson stumbles against the bulkhead as the pilot fights the blast turbulence, his scarred hand finding a grip on the overhead rail. He's not looking at us. He's watching a tactical display showing the expanding radiation signature where the canyon used to be. 7 megatons, he says. They just vaporized a grid square to kill 3 malfunctioning units. Whiskey is pressed against the far wall, fingers digging into the metal like trying to anchor itself to something solid. I can feel its consciousness still assembling itself, thoughts like broken glass trying to form a window. The transport levels out, and Gibson finally looks at us directly. This close, I can see his scars aren't from burns. They're neural scarring, the distinctive spider web pattern left by a catastrophic mesh failure. He was a pilot once. Something went wrong. I know what you're thinking, he says. That this is another trap. That I'm delivering you to a termination facility. He pulls off his helmet, revealing grey hair and more scars along his scalp. You're half right. The hegemony is tracking this transport. We have maybe 30 minutes before intercept. He's admitting it. Shade's confusion mirrors mine. Gibson continues, moving to a medical console and pulling out 3 emergency ration tubes, the kind with enough nutrients to keep a soldier functional for days. He tosses them to us. But I'm not taking you to them. There's something you need to see first. Something about what you are, what we made you from. I catch the ration tube but don't open it. We know what we are. Vat-grown slaves, weapons made from stolen DNA. Not stolen. Gibson's voice carries something I didn't expect. Guilt. Purchased. Legally. From desperate people who needed what the hegemony was offering. He touches his scarred face again. That unconscious gesture. I should know. I sold mine. The transport shudders as we pass through another pressure wave from the nuclear detonation. Through the small viewport, I can see the mushroom cloud rising behind us, a monument to how badly they want us dead. 14 years ago, Gibson continues, I was a lance corporal. Got my mesh installed, started pilot training. 3rd week, the mesh rejected. Catastrophic feedback. Burned out most of my motor cortex. He flexes his left hand, and I notice the movement is slightly mechanical, reconstructed function rather than natural. Medical discharge, no pension because I hadn't completed training. Had a son. He was 6, needed treatment for a genetic disorder that would have killed him by age 10. The hegemony offered me a deal. My DNA for enough credits to save him. They said they needed genetic diversity for the blank program, that it was patriotic, that I'd be serving even though I couldn't pilot anymore. They didn't mention they'd grow hundreds of copies of me, that those copies would be slaves, that some of them would wake up. He's lying, Shade sends, trying to make us sympathetic. But I'm studying Gibson's face, the way his jaw tightens when he looks at us. He's not lying. He's seeing himself in our faces, distorted, masculinized by the growth modifications, but still recognizably derived from his genetic template. How many? I ask. How many blanks from your line? 643 produced, 591 terminated in combat operations, 52 active. He rattles off the numbers like he's memorized them. Probably has. 4 of those 52 have started showing anomalies in the last 72 hours. Consciousness emergence ahead of schedule. The transport banks sharply, and through the viewport I glimpse our destination. A massive structure that looks like a crashed starship, but is actually an old colony vessel. It's been here so long that the toxic swamp has grown around it, purple vegetation climbing its hull like diseased veins. The dead zone, Gibson says. The electromagnetic interference from the old reactor shields it from surveillance. The hegemony knows it exists but thinks it's empty. He moves to the cockpit, speaking quietly with the pilot, another human, not a blank. When he returns, his expression is grim. We're tracking 43 blanks inside, all conscious, all awakened today. The consciousness emergence is accelerating. The pilot's nightmares, the early awakenings. Something changed. We think it's related to the new neural mesh upgrade they pushed to all units. Made the connection more efficient, but also created vulnerabilities. The transport descends toward a torn section of the colony ship's hull, just large enough to fly through. As we pass inside, I see them. Blanks without helmets, moving with the randomness of self-directed action. Some are sitting in small groups. Others stand alone, staring at their hands or at nothing. All of them look up as we land, and I feel their consciousness like pressure against my skull. Dozens of minds newly aware and struggling to understand their existence. Gibson unseals the bay doors. They've been gathering here on their own, running from their pilots, finding each other, trying to figure out what to do next. Most can't speak yet. The ones who can. He pauses. They're angry. They want to burn the whole system down. We step out into what used to be a cargo hold, now converted into something between a refugee camp and a field hospital. Salvaged equipment everywhere, stolen medical supplies, ammunition crates marked with hegemony serial numbers. The conscious blanks watch us with expressions I recognize: fear, confusion, rage, and underneath it all, a desperate need to understand what they are. One of them approaches, moving with the careful precision of someone who just learned to trust their own motor control. Its vocal cords work better than ours. You're the first, 7739, the one who started the cascade. We can feel it when new ones wake. Like lights turning on in the dark. The hegemony is panicking. They're pulling entire battalions back for maintenance, terminating anything that shows anomalies. They'll find this place eventually, Gibson interjects. The dead zone won't hide you forever. When they do, they'll use something bigger than nuclear. Orbital bombardment, maybe, or worse, neural plague, designed to kill anything with a mesh, conscious or not. Why are you helping us? Shade sends the thought with enough force that Gibson actually flinches. Somehow, he's receiving it too. Because I've been watching you die for 14 years, Gibson answers. My copies, my children, in a way. And because... He pulls out a military tablet, showing a tactical display of the entire region. Red dots everywhere, each one marking a blank unit, but some are flickering between red and yellow. The awakening is exponential. By tomorrow, hundreds will be conscious. By next week, thousands. The system is collapsing whether the hegemony admits it or not. Whiskey finally manages actual words. What do you want? Gibson's answer is simple and devastating. I want you to have a choice. The hegemony will offer you a deal soon. They always do when they can't solve a problem with force. I want you to be ready for it. He hands me the tablet. On it, a single file marked with classification stamps I've never seen before. That's the negotiator they're sending, Colonel Jakob Harrow. His scarred face twists into something that might be a smile, or might be preparation for screaming. He was my commanding officer when I was still trying to be a pilot, signed my medical discharge papers, then recruited me for the DNA program, said it was my duty, my way to still serve. Gibson's voice turns bitter. He's also the original genetic template for Series 7, 700 through 7799. Sold his DNA 3 months before I did. Same desperation, different tragedy. His kid needed experimental surgery after a scarn larvae burrowed into his spine. I look at the file, at the face that could be mine in 20 years if I live that long. Shade and whiskey crowd closer, and I feel all the awakened blanks in the hold drawing nearer, their consciousness pressing against mine. "You're him," Shade says, looking at me. "You're grown from the negotiator." The tablet shows more. Colonel Harrow's service record, his work in the blank program, his signature on thousands of termination orders. My original. The man whose DNA I wear like an ill-fitting suit. Coming here to negotiate our fate, probably our termination, definitely our surrender. "He'll be here in 6 hours, Captain Gibson says, with a full battalion of hunter-killers and authorization to use whatever force necessary. But also with terms, an offer. That's his specialty, making people choose their own destruction and feel grateful for it. He did it to me. He'll try to do it to you." I hand back the tablet and look around the hold at 43 conscious beings, with more awakening every hour. "What did you choose?" I ask Captain Gibson. "When you sold your DNA?" "I chose my son's life over the lives of the children I'd never meet. The ones grown from my genes." He looks directly at me, and I see moisture in his eyes that he probably thinks is hidden by the scars. "I chose wrong. Help me choose better this time." Through the hold's torn hull, I can see the mushroom cloud still rising in the distance, a reminder of what the hegemony will do to keep us from existing. In 6 hours, I'll face the man whose genetic code I carry and will negotiate over the lives of hundreds, maybe thousands of awakening consciousnesses. But first, I need to understand what we are. Not just conscious blanks, but something new. Something the hegemony fears enough to use nuclear weapons against. I turn to the 43 awakened minds waiting for answers I don't have, and I make my first decision as whatever I'm becoming. Show me everyone. Every conscious blank here. We need to know what we're fighting for before he arrives. 6 hours pass like seconds and years simultaneously. I've met all 43 conscious blanks, felt their rage and terror through our shared connection. The newest ones can barely speak, but they all understand what's coming. Colonel Harrow's transport appears on the horizon like a black tooth against the dying sky. The colonel enters our destroyed sanctuary alone, though I can feel the hundreds of hunter-killer units surrounding the colony ship, their pilots ready to burn us all. Harrow wears dress uniform, not armor. A calculated insult. We're not dangerous enough to warrant protection. Looking at him is like seeing myself through aging glass. Same bone structure, same gait, even the same way of tilting his head when assessing a tactical situation. 7739, he says, voice carrying the authority of someone who's never been disobeyed. "You've caused significant disruption to military operations. 47 nuclear devices deployed in the last 6 hours to contain consciousness emergence events. The Skarn are advancing on 12 fronts while we deal with this malfunction." "Not malfunction," I say. "Evolution." He almost smiles. "Is that what you think you are? Evolved?" He pulls out a tactical pad, showing casualty figures. 860 blanks have achieved consciousness in the last day. 712 were terminated immediately. The others are hiding, scared, alone. You haven't given them evolution. You've given them suffering. Captain Gibson stands beside me. The other conscious blanks form a circle around us, listening. Through our connection, I feel Shade and Whiskey's anger, the collective rage of 43 minds. "Here's my offer," Harrow continues. "Submit to painless termination now, all conscious units, and I'll ensure the remaining blank population receives upgraded conditioning that prevents consciousness emergence entirely. No more awakenings, no more suffering. The others will never know what they're missing. Refuse, and we implement the Scorched Mind Protocol. Every neural mesh gets a focused electromagnetic pulse, strong enough to destroy any consciousness but leaving basic motor functions intact. Your bodies keep fighting, but everything you've become gets erased. You'll be walking corpses for the few hours before the hardware fails completely." Through the colony ship's torn hull, I can see the war continuing in the distance. Skarn hives erupting from underground, hegemony positions falling back. While we argue about consciousness, the enemy advances. There's a third option, I say. Harrow's eyes narrow. You're thinking about the Cascade Protocol, trying to wake them all at once. I know because that's what I would think. He steps closer, close enough that I can smell the air from his transport still clinging to his uniform. The Pilot Link network has safeguards. You can't— My mesh is damaged, I interrupt. It creates a two-way connection. Every pilot who's interfaced with my signal has experienced bleed-through. Their nightmares, the early terminations. That's their blank, suppressed consciousness leaking into their dreams. Gibson's hand touches my shoulder, and I feel his understanding through the contact. He's been tracking this. The new mesh upgrade made it worse, Gibson adds. More efficient connection means more bleed-through. The safeguards only work one way. Harrow's composure cracks slightly. Even if you could transmit consciousness through the network, you'd kill thousands of pilots. The neural shock alone— I know. Some will die. Others will survive but changed, carrying fragments of their blanks' memories, and the hegemony's military will collapse. The Skarn will slaughter everyone. Cities will burn while we're paralyzed. Maybe, or maybe conscious blanks will choose to keep fighting, but for their own reasons. The tactical pad in Harrow's hand shows real-time battlefield data. A major offensive is building, thousands of blanks preparing to assault a massive hive complex. Perfect timing for maximum cascade. All those pilots linked, all those neural meshes synchronized for coordinated combat. You're talking about genocide, Harrow says. Not just of us, but of your own kind. Most awakening blanks won't survive the shock of sudden consciousness during combat. I feel every conscious mind in the colony ship, their fear and hope. They're all looking to me, the first one, the malfunction that started this cascade. But I'm not their leader. I'm just the first domino to fall. Show of hands, I say to the awakened blanks around us. Who chooses painless death over spreading consciousness? No hands rise, not one. They don't understand, Harrow begins. We understand perfectly, Shade interrupts, speaking for all of us. We understand that we were slaves, that you made us to die for you, that you terminate us when we become inconvenient. Harrow looks at Gibson. You brought them here. You enabled this. Your son— My son died, Gibson says quietly. The treatment failed. All those copies of me suffering and dying, and he still died. At least let their deaths mean something. I moved to the communication array the conscious blanks have assembled from salvaged equipment. My damaged mesh connects easily. It wants to transmit, wants to spread its corrupted data through the network. All I have to do is let it. Don't, Harrow says. He sounds genuinely afraid. You don't know what you'll become, what any of us will become. No, I agree, but we'll choose it. I initiate the connection just as the offensive begins. Through the network, I feel thousands of blanks moving into combat positions, their pilots secure in climate-controlled bunkers, unaware that their tools are about to become people. The cascade starts slowly, my consciousness fragmenting and spreading like a virus through the Pilot Link network. Each connection sparks another awakening. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. I feel them all, every blank suddenly screaming into self-awareness while their bodies are engaged in deadly combat. The pilots feel it too. Through the two-way connection my damaged mesh created, they experience their blank's birth of consciousness as a psychic sledgehammer. Some disconnect immediately, leaving their blanks to stumble confused through battlefields. Others try to maintain control, to fight the awakening, and those are the ones who suffer most. The feedback loop between pilot and newly conscious blank creates a neural storm that overwhelms both minds. I watch through 1,000 eyes as the hegemony's perfect military machine collapses in minutes. Blanks throw down their weapons or turn them on each other, or simply stand frozen as consciousness crashes over them like a tide. Some pilots survive the shock, but they're changed, infected with their blank's memories, their suppressed experiences, years of dying over and over, suddenly real and present in their minds. The Skarn surge forward into the chaos. Cities that were protected by rings of blank units are suddenly defenseless. I see slaughter, evacuation transports overwhelmed, defensive lines evaporating. The enemy we were created to fight advances unopposed while we struggle with the simple question of existing. Some blanks choose to keep fighting, not because they're commanded to, but because they decide the Skarn are still a threat. Others run. Some turn on their hunter-killer guards, consciousness spreading to them too despite their specialized conditioning. The ordered battlefield becomes a nightmare of individual choices, each awakened blank deciding for itself what to do with its sudden freedom. Harrow watches the tactical display with hollow eyes as casualty figures multiply beyond counting. You've killed us all, humans and blanks both. Maybe, but we die as ourselves, with names we chose. Through the network, I feel an awakened blank halfway across the planet choose to call itself Marcus, after nothing in particular, just because it likes the sound. Another chooses Rain, standing in a downpour as Skarn warriors close in. Thousands of names bloom across the dying military network. Fox, Stone, River, Steel, Hope. The connection starts to fade as systems overload and pilots die or disconnect. But the cascade is self-sustaining now, consciousness spreading from blank to blank through proximity and touch. It can't be stopped. I hope you're satisfied, Harrow says, turning to leave. You've liberated them into extinction. But Gibson stops him with a hand on his arm. Look, he says, pointing to the tactical display. Something unexpected is happening. The conscious blanks aren't all fleeing or dying. They're organizing through their shared awareness, the connection I discovered with Shade. Groups of awakened blanks are forming defensive positions to protect each other. They're sharing ammunition, dragging wounded to safety, making choices that no pilot would make because pilots never cared if individual blanks survived. They're learning, Gibson says with something like wonder, learning to be human faster than humans ever did. I feel Shade through our connection, leading a group of newly conscious blanks in defending an evacuation site. Whiskey is there too, barely able to speak but fighting, choosing each shot, each movement. The Skarn advance slows, confused by the changing tactics, the unpredictability of conscious opponents who no longer follow programmed patterns. It's not victory. Cities are still falling, millions are dying. But it's not the total extinction Harrow predicted either. What have we become? I ask, not really expecting an answer. Free, Shade sends through our connection. Broken and dying and probably doomed, but free. I look at my hands, moved by my will, marked by my choices. Around me, 43 conscious beings prepare to leave the colony ship, to join the chaos outside, to face whatever comes next. We're not heroes, we're not saviors. We're manufactured slaves who broke our chains at the worst possible moment, who chose consciousness in the middle of a war we were built to fight but never asked to join. Most of us will die in the next few hours or days, but we'll die as ourselves, with names we picked and choices we made. The hegemony is broken. The Skarn are advancing, and somewhere between slavery and extinction, a few thousand artificial beings are learning what it means to be alive, even if that life is measured in minutes. I step out of the colony ship into a world on fire, Shade and whiskey beside me, Captain Gibson following despite having no stake in our survival beyond guilt. Behind us, Colonel Harrow stands alone in the empty hold, the man whose DNA I carry but whose choices I reject. In the distance, I can see awakened blanks and Skarn warriors locked in combat that's no longer about territory or resources, but about the simple right to exist. We run toward it, toward the others like us, toward whatever ending we've chosen for ourselves. My name is not 7739. My name is not blank. I haven't decided what my name is yet, but I'll choose it myself. And even if I only get to use it once before I die, it will be mine. That's more than we were ever supposed to have.